Your smartwatch tells you that you slept great. Your heart rate is normal, your stress score is low, but you still feel exhausted. Or or maybe your watch says you're having a terrible recovery day, yet you feel like you could run a marathon. Who's right? Who is right here? Have we reached a point where the trust piece of technology, more than the signals of our own body, which has spent millions of years learning to send us? Today, we're asking one of the biggest questions in modern healthcare. Are wearables helping us reconnect with our bodies or replacing our ability to listen? Welcome back to the show, Dr. David Hopper. How you doing, buddy?
Hey guys, great to see both of you again. Great to be back on here. So thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have a great conversation with you all today.
Well, let's start with first things first. Dave, if you had to choose, now I don't mean to put you on the spot right in the starting blocks here, but if you had to choose one, would you rather someone become an expert at reading their own body or become an expert at reading the data on their smartwatch, and why?
Yes. Well, I think there's a very clear winner here. So reading the data on your smartwatch, will tell you very little about yourself. And we're not all that great at reading that data anyway. 'Cause that data is relatively meaningless unless we have some kind of subjectivity attached to it. So if you don't understand your own body, that data is useless, right? And that's what we want to do is we want to get people to fully connect with their own body. We want to get people back to a place where they understand the signals that their body is sending them, and where they can connect with their own body again. And that's the easiest way to care for yourself. It's the easiest way to create optimal health and well-being.
So we understand marketing is magnificent these days, and yet 50 years ago when people knew that they were tired or stressed or overworked or getting sick, they just knew it. They felt that way. But nowadays people don't even trust, they don't trust what they're feeling, and they're basing their experiences on that data. How did that change their opinion?
So Dr. Spencer, is twofold. One is largely that we don't spend much time in our bodies anymore or working with our bodies anymore. Where we used to be a lot more laborsome of a society, and we've gotten out of touch with our bodies where we're mostly just using our minds for work, which arguably is great, right? In some regards, but we've lost touch with our own bodies, and we don't really understand what our body is saying anymore as a result of that. So that's one big piece of it. Another big piece is that we've also been taught that we don't understand this machine anymore, right? We've been taught that there is only a certain group of people who wear white jackets and stethoscopes, and those are the only people who really understand what's going on with our body. And we have no idea what's happening inside of this thing, even though we live with it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, right? So we've been taught that in a lot of ways too. And unfortunately, a lot of us have taken that bait.
Although I will say a lot of people these days aren't trusting the men in white coats and stethoscopes. I'm just saying.
Fortunately, we are making a move in the right direction. I agree. Yes.
And even nowadays, it's all about Dr. Google, right? Patients come in, they go, well, looked up my symptoms on chat. And I go, oh, God, here we go. Right, Terry?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, on that note, we were, I remember when the cell phone, and Spencer remembers this, when they first came out, even before the internet. Oh, this is going to simplify your life. And then the internet. Oh, this is going to make things so much easier. And it's gotten so much more complicated. And now we're just bombarded with information. You got people glued to their phone because they're become obsessed with information. You have a conversation before your question's even out. People are looking up the answer. There is no sit and wait anymore. And with that, with this bombardment information, in your opinion, what's the symptom that just keeps hitting us and we ignore?
Well, I mean, there's a ton of those symptoms that keep hitting us that we keep ignoring. But you're right on though. We can just look anything up, and I'm sure you guys get very frustrated with that as well, right? If you plug in any symptoms that you're having right now, it can match up with just about any disease that you want it to out there, right? You can make it as big of a deal or as little of a deal as you want. And you can keep diving down that rabbit hole, right? With ChatGPT, like, well, I'm having this symptom. Well, it could be this. Well, what else would I notice if it was this? And it could be this, right? And then you keep going down that rabbit hole. And by the time you're all the way down there, you're like, I need to go to the emergency room right now. Right. And it was just a cough. But hey, that's, but yes, as far as, and Dr. Terry, I believe what you were asking was about, biggest symptoms that we're ignoring from our bodies. And I mean, I think fatigue is a huge one. Fatigue, lack of sleep, lack of quality sleep. These are huge symptoms that our body is sending us all the time. And we are just ignoring this nonstop, right? And part of that is that we've been taught to push through a lot of these things. And kind of ignore these things. And I know especially people of my generation and even more so of older generations have been taught that, any sign of tiredness, fatigue, that's weakness, right? You just push right through that. But it's a different type of fatigue that is hitting us nowadays. It's not a physical fatigue, right? It's a mental fatigue. It's a fatigue from sitting like this all day and using the wrong muscles when you're breathing. It's a fatigue from your brain not working properly because you're sitting with improper posture. You're breathing improperly all throughout the day because you're scrunched up like this on a computer, right? In positions that our body was never meant to be in for extended periods of time, especially. So those are some things that without a doubt we're completely ignoring nowadays. And we are just pushing through. We're taking ibuprofen when we get a headache. We're drinking more coffee when we're tired, right? We're just pushing right on through all those warning signs that our body is giving us. And that's what I do like to look at those as. Those are our warning signs. Those are our dashboard lights coming on when we do have symptoms like that pop up.
All right. So on that note, I mean, sometimes we'll get these patients coming in, they get a new smartwatch, they get a new ring, a new wearable of some kind, and there's so much data available to them. And they go, well, what do I look at? What's this HRV? What's this heart rate? What's this oxygen, sleep? Am I ready for the day? Am I not ready for the day? Did I sleep good? They get overwhelmed and sometimes they just ignore it all. They just wear it as a watch again. So, or they wear it as a ring and they don't even pay attention anymore. What's the symptom do you think is being ignored the most that for a new person with a wearable should start focusing on to help them integrate their brain back to their listening to their body?
Yeah. I might be a little bit biased, but I don't think I'm completely biased. In that I think heart rate variability is going to be your most important signal. Cause that's looking at everything that your autonomic nervous system is doing. So we're looking at fatigue with that. We're looking at, possible exposure to pathogens. We're looking at, if your body's overworked. We're looking at sleep quality. We're looking at breathing quality, right? We're looking at all of these things in one when we measure heart rate variability, because that is a measure of how your autonomic nervous system is functioning. So if we understand that, and it's actually not that difficult of a metric to understand, it's basically, are you staying about the same or a little above? You're doing great, right? Are you falling below your norm? And that might be a signal that something is starting to go wrong, or just that you're challenging yourself, right? Depending on how we are and what's going on in our life. That would be one of the easiest things, but you're right. These watch companies, these, and don't get me wrong, all of these wearable companies are doing amazing things. but it is too much information. And it does start to create an anxiety in a lot of people, where you look at this and you go, man, my sleep score is in the 60s every single day. And rather than that being a cue to say, let's go look at why, it just keeps beating you down and it's defeating you. And you say, you know what? I'm just going to stop looking at this. Right. And then what gets worse is you look at, your quote unquote readiness score from, say, Aura, and then you also have Apple Watch, and you look at, your data on that one, and it tells you two completely different things. And then you're left there going, well, which one do I believe? Right. And never do you check back and say, well, how do I feel? Right. But rather it's which of these smart devices that are supposed to be so much smarter than me is telling me the right information. Right. So we have all this going on throughout there.
What's some strategies for the person that may have an addictive personality or may be borderline depressed or anxious and trying to get healthy and trying to be healthy? What's some strategies that you've seen in your years of working with these devices that you would want to pass on to these people to go, okay, going into this, it's a tool, not an obsession. And how do you counsel people to use it so they don't go down those pathways?
Well, one of the absolute easiest ways to use that is to just say, hey, put me as your physician on your data, and I will look at your data for you and I'll tell you what you need to know. Right. I will alert you when you're overworking. I will talk to you about your sleep when we need to talk to you about those kinds of things. Right. And we'll work through it like that. So that way you don't have to see it at all. You're just wearing the Aura ring or you're wearing the Whoop strap, and that information just goes to your physician, goes to your, healthcare provider, health coach, whatever it is. That's a very simple way. Obviously there's cost associated with that, and we might not all want to do that. So if you're not going to do something like that, then I would just say, first, ask yourself, right? Always do this. First thing when you wake up, sit there and ask yourself, how do I feel today? How was my sleep last night? Right? And if you start tuning into your own body and asking yourself these simple questions, then when you look at your data and you go, and you're saying to yourself, man, I slept really great. And then you look at your data and you go, that's weird. It says my sleep score was 60, but I felt like I slept better than I've slept in days, years, whatever it is. That's a lot more powerful. Then we can start to ignore those things, and we can start to value our subjective input a lot more, because that matters a whole bunch more, what we're feeling, and we can train ourselves to put that as the primary.
Dr. Spencer brought up some earlier that, people come in and go, well, Dr. Google said this or Dr. Chat said this. Do you see the bell curve and where people are stopping? They're not trusting themselves anymore, and they're trusting these devices. And how do you see us getting back to where we actually trust how we feel like we did before we even have these devices, and these devices become something we can build trust with ourselves versus take it away?
So again, it's going to be right back to that same idea of we're looking for I call it a morning subjective check-in, where you check in with yourself before you look at any of the objective data. That way, when you start to see that what you're saying and what you're feeling is aligning with what's going on with these things, it reinforces your feelings rather than tells you what you should be feeling, right? So, and I think that's where we can actually use wearable technology to reconnect with our bodies and start to trust these dashboard lights that our body's putting up again. These symptoms. We can start to trust these things again when we see that, oh man, I felt like I slept great, and I can confirm that because my Aura ring told me I slept great, right? I felt like I recovered well from my workout. And you know what? My ring said that my HRV climbed back up. Look at that. Oh man, I actually did recover from my workout. And that's where we can start to build that reconnection, and we can start to prove to ourselves that, oh man, I do know what I'm talking about. It turns out that, as Dr. Spencer said, right, these thousands, millions of years that we've been working on this system for, it turns out that there was something to that. We did learn something along the way, right?
Dr. Dave, I think about back in the days of Star Trek, where you had that recorder that the doctor had, that he would just wave over your body and how it would register whether you were ill or not and what was actually wrong. It seems like that era is upon us, and some of the things that are out there. So is
I thought you
there
were going to say the Jetsons.
The Jetsons? No, Star Trek, man. But the Jetsons too, right? But if there was would there be a downside to constantly being told something's wrong, or that might be wrong? What do you think about the stresses that would cause if you're depending on something every single moment of the day?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Our default is to go into worry. Our default is to go into that sympathetic, right? I want to protect myself. And whether that's toxins, traumas, or thoughts in this case, right? We are gonna worry ourselves into a problem. I always like to say, especially this is a big one with, I got 2 young kids. I especially like to say this when my wife is worried about something going on with my kids. It's like to say, if you go looking for a problem, you're going to find one, right? And that doesn't really do us a lot of good majority of the time, right? Because as it turns out, our body has made it pretty darn far, right? Humans have made it pretty darn far without all of this stuff. So yeah, we don't always have to go looking for a problem. And if you are telling somebody that there is something wrong with them on a regular basis, they are going to manifest that, right? That will become their reality. That is absolutely part of it. And along the way, you're going to turn somebody from, somebody who might be a relaxed, healthy person into essentially a worry ward, right? Somebody who is constantly saying, oh my gosh, I have this going wrong. Look at what my watch is telling me today. I can't believe that, this is a risk for cardiovascular disease. And then I looked this up on Google and it's telling me that I need to go see a cardiologist, and we can very easily spin down that way. So yeah, that could be a huge downside. But I don't see wearables as, for the majority of us, I don't see wearables as being a red alarm telling us that there's something wrong all the time. I see them more as that adjunct that is going to help us understand our body better.
I want to inject something for some and go back. You mentioned the word HRV should be the one that we pay attention to the most. Can you actually explain what that is for the layperson who sees that HRV and what the numbers should be for health? You see people in their 20s and their 60s and numbers. Can you actually just dive in a little deeper on what HRV is?
Yeah, absolutely. So heart rate variability is going to be looking at the moment-to-moment difference between each heartbeat. So, like on an EKG recording, that's that big spike, right? We're looking at the time difference between each of those spikes, and the more variance that we have, so the bigger the difference in time from one to the next, the more space we have for adaptability, essentially. And that's not just adaptability to any one thing. That is our nervous system's ability to adapt to any change that is placed upon our physiology, right? So whether that be some kind of internal threat, whether that be some kind of external threat, right? Our ability to adapt to that change is strongly based on how variable our heart rate is or isn't. And that means that the larger the variability, or the higher your HRV, the easier we can adapt to any stressor that is placed on our body, right? Whereas the opposite is also true. The less variance we have, that says our nervous system is that less, that it will take that much more time, or it'll be that much more difficult for our body to adapt to those changes. So I like to think about it like holding a stack of bricks, right? Where if you're just walking around with one little brick weighing you down, right? And I like to call these things life metrics. One little brick weighing you down. It's very easy to adapt to any change in your environment, right? So like, say somebody asks you a question or tries to joke with you. It's no problem when you're holding one little brick, right? But then say there's more life that is dropped into your lap, right? So you take things like, your spouse, you take things like your kids, you take things like your finances, you take things like your practice, right? All these bricks. Now you're carrying this huge load of bricks. And when something else comes into your environment and tries to disrupt you, right? It's a lot more difficult to be flexible, right? If somebody tries to joke with you, jokes aren't funny anymore, right? They're just annoying. If your kids want to play with you, right? It's really difficult to play when you're carrying this huge load of bricks, right? So I like to think about it that way because it gives people a much better mental picture of what's going on. So you can think the higher your HRV is, the lighter your load of bricks, right? The lower your HRV is, the larger that load of bricks is.
So how do we get rid of these bricks for people that have a low number?
Yes.
And how do we train our HRV?
So it's not necessarily about getting rid of the bricks, right? Not necessarily about getting rid of the bricks. It's about learning how to balance them and play while you are balancing them, right? So that's tuning the autonomic nervous system, and a lot of that is vagal stimulation. A lot of that is lifestyle medicine. And do you guys want to know something crazy?
Yes.
If you measure, and I may have told you guys this before, but if you measure a patient's heart rate variability before a chiropractic adjustment and immediately after, it almost doubles, right? Which means that you can go from carrying bricks like this that are weighing you down, and you get your chiropractic adjustment, and you all know how you feel after that. You go, right? And then that load of bricks turns to a load of styrofoam, right? You're like, all right, this is no problem anymore, right? So it's kind of crazy, but we see that huge increase in vagal tone immediately after a chiropractic adjustment, which is really cool. And then how long that lasts? Well, as you guys know, it's different for every single patient.
I actually read research a while back on cervical manipulation and its effects on blood pressure.
Yes.
So there is validation in what you're saying. I really like that. That's cool.
Yes,
me ask you-
absolutely.
This is not a rapid fire question, but it could be. If we took two people, a 25-year-old and a 75-year-old that had no technology, and the 25-year-old did, who do you think would actually understand their body better?
In a 25-year-old, a 25-year-old who's never been exposed to technology in their entire life, like a 25-year-old from the 1950s?
Well, yeah, let's go with that.
So a 25-year-old from the 1950s would probably understand their body a whole lot better. A 25-year-old nowadays, who has a wearable, would actually probably have better insight into their own physiology. Because again, right, we're put into this dogma that we don't quite understand our bodies. And once we have these devices, we begin to understand our bodies. And I think that young people are doing a really good job of using the technology in a positive way, meaning that they're checking in with their bodies and they're beginning to understand, right, that when I feel like this is what my watch tells me. When I feel like this is what my watch tells me, right? So they're beginning to make those connections, and I think that's really great. I think it's very powerful, and I think it is beginning to bring back that connection.
Well, that's a surprise. I'm glad to hear you say that, because you get these kids checking on their phones all the time. And it seems like, these apps are coming out much more technological, ones that you can check heart rate by putting, there's an accessory where you put your two fingers on there and you can check your heart rate. I find it hard to believe, but supposedly it's pretty accurate.
Yes.
A lot of that technology has become so sophisticated. Imagine what the robots will be able to do, huh? All right, Dr. Dave, let me ask you, if everyone that was listening on the show right now took off every wearable device for 1 week, what would you tell them to pay attention to that they probably wouldn't have noticed in years?
Yeah. I start with the thing that we all do the most that impacts our health the most, which is breathing. So I would tell everybody to pay attention to the way that they are breathing. During the day is huge. So that is the posture of your mouth, your lips, your jaw. Are you breathing through your mouth, your nose? Where is your tongue at in your mouth when you're breathing? What's your posture like when you're sitting, when you're standing? Are you allowing your diaphragm to move properly when you're breathing? And then almost most importantly, how are you breathing when you're sleeping? Because that is one of the largest impactors on your health. When we get into things like not even necessarily obstructive sleep apnea, but when we talk about things like just simply snoring and what an impact that is on your health, as so many people believe that is a sign of great sleep, right? And in fact, that's a huge red flag that you're having a very big problem breathing actually while you're sleeping. So that is what I would focus on. I would tell everybody to turn towards breathing, right? What's happening there?
Interesting. Anything else?
Well, next to breathing would be sleep. That's my health hierarchy. So how are you breathing? Number one, and then how are you sleeping? And as I tell all my patients, it's a simple, if you're not breathing well, right, then anything else that we try to do for the remainder of your health, for the remainder of your body, it's just going to be like spinning your wheels, right? We might see a little bit of progress, but we're never going to get you to optimal health unless we solve this breathing problem. And then next would be sleep, right? If you don't have quality sleep going on, then it's going to be the same thing, right? That's just the next major thing. If we don't have you sleeping long enough, if we don't have the quality of your sleep high enough, then again, we're never going to get you to a point where you can achieve optimal health, right? And then from there, we can talk about things like, nutrition. We can talk about things like movement. We can talk about things like habits. We can do all of that, right? But sleep and breathing will always be the two highest things on my list. And that's obviously a lot what I focus on in practice as well. And I use HRV as a large guide for a lot of that.
And probably worth repeating, but sleep as far as quality, not quantity. Because I always find it funny how people go, I put 8 hours in and still tired, or the vice versa. Somebody is able to sleep for 3 or 4 hours and be sharp as a tack all day long, So quality, but to get quality and good breathing, do you have any suggestions for, what someone could do as preparation for a good night's sleep and a good HRV reading the next morning?
Yes. Pardon me, I feel like I'm going to cough. So the first thing is I like to go through what I call a sleep hygiene checklist with all my patients. So this is something that is these are the things that you're doing all day long that are going to impact your sleep for that night. All right. So we're talking about everything from the moment you wake up. What are you doing? Right? What are you putting in your mouth? What are you doing with your body? until all the way before, those couple hours before we get to sleep. And that's where you start to break into what is called your sleep routine, which is those things that happen within a couple hours of bed that are going to cue your body into being ready for bed, right? It's going to start to cue your body to begin to release that melatonin, get you ready for sleep that is going to come, right? And then if we're nailing all these things throughout the day, then by the time we get to actually sleep, we should be able to have sleep onset come relatively quick. We should be able to see that we stay asleep throughout the night. We can see our sleep architecture throughout the night. Should be in a relatively good pattern. And yes, then hopefully the next day we're waking up more refreshed, saying, all right, I had a great night's sleep. I feel wonderful. And your HRV would also reflect that.
Thanks for sharing that. Hey, Terry, how about we get into the rapid fire questions, huh? Well, hopefully Dr. Hopper got some good sleep, quality sleep, and his HRV is in prime order, because I got question number 1 out of 5 for you. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Imagine you lose every wearable you've ever owned tomorrow morning. You can only teach someone 3 things to help them understand what their body is trying to tell them. What are those 3 things?
All right. Well, what are those 3 things? I would say, let's go with, when you wake up in the morning, how are you feeling? And I would teach people that if you are feeling ready to go, let's take on the world, then you did some great things for your body the day before, or possibly days before. And you did some great things, in preparation for sleep. Your sleep environment was really good, right? So that would be the first thing that I would tell them about their health, or about a symptom that they could say. The next would be about when they wake up in the morning, if they have dry throat, if they have irritation in their throat, feel like they're hacking anything up, right? Anything like that, even a burning in the back of their throat, then that would be a indication for me that somebody is sleeping with their mouth open, probably a snorer, probably has some level of obstructive sleep apnea. Something along those lines that is a big highlight for me that I would say you need to pay attention to what you're doing here. I might recommend something like mouth taping. Then the final thing that I would recommend is, or the final thing that I would look at is, how much fun are you having in life, right? Are we feeling really good? Are we having a great time? Do we feel like we're on point with everything? Are we smiling every day? Are we making our kids happy? Are we making ourselves happy? Are we living a fulfilled life? Because that would be an indication that your heart rate variability, along with all of your other metrics, would be going in the right direction, and you would be thriving in life.
Very good. So much for rapid fire. Okay. So, but I will ask you to please, you mentioned just a kind of a quick thing on mouth taping. I want to be real clear to the audience. He said mouth taping if you're breathing through your mouth instead of your nose. What is mouth taping? I'll give you 10 seconds to explain it.
Yes. So mouth taping is not taping your mouth shut like you're being taken hostage. It is a small piece of tape from there actually is a brand called Hostage Tape. What horrible marketing, right? But it's a small strip of tape right here over your lips. So from the bottom of your nose to the bottom of your top lip, to the bottom of your bottom lip. And that just holds your mouth closed while you're breathing, so you can have proper oral posture. It forces you to breathe through your nose. There's also a wonderful brand out there. It's called Myotape, and I have no association with them. And that just goes around your mouth. Doesn't work so well on people with beards like me, but it enforces your orbicularis oris muscle. and just pushes your lips together. So it doesn't actually go over your lips. A lot of people are more comfortable with that because it doesn't feel like you're taping your mouth closed. But it forces proper breathing at night. And people love the way they feel in the morning.
So my wife taking duct tape and wrapping my entire face is probably not the right way to do it.
Well, that depends what you're doing it for, Dr. Terry.
It's probably because you talk in your sleep.
Yeah, probably. Shut up.
All right, question number 2. I'm still laughing about hostage tape. How did they come up with that? Question number 2. When your career is over, what do you hope people say you changed? Not what you discovered, but what you've changed for them.
Yeah, quality of life. Quality of life is the biggest thing that I want to be remembered for. A lot of the work that I do, I get the most amazing feedback. Can I give an example real quick?
Yeah.
I had a patient I just saw her again on Tuesday, and she is in her later 60s. She had a stroke and she was suffering from a trigeminal neuralgia. She hadn't been able to kiss her husband in over 10 years. And after one session, she didn't have the neuralgia pain and she was able to kiss her husband. She said he was leaving for a fishing trip and he was going to miss his flight because he was so excited that he was able to kiss her again. And it's stuff like that is just sends you over the moon, cool. Right? So yes, quality of life.
Terry, don't let Michelle listen to this. She'll have some ideas and show up with trigeminal neuralgia tomorrow. Question number 3, Dr. Hopper. What's one belief you've held with absolute conviction that you later realized you were completely wrong about?
Oh, does this have to be health related?
No.
Unless your wife had trigeminal neuralgia. Yeah. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. This is a difficult one. Well, here, not health related, but I'm from Chicago area, and I thought Chicago style pizza was absolutely the best kind of pizza you could eat. And have. And don't get me wrong, I'm not backing down on that, but New York style pizza is really good as well. I really do enjoy New York style pizza, so I can't say that Chicago style is above it. It all depends on your mood.
Thanks for sharing. I think I would have gluten overload if I had either of those 2 pizzas. All right. Question number 4. When you're stressed, overwhelmed, or life just gets hard, man, what is your body usually trying to tell you that you tend to ignore?
Yeah, my body is usually trying to tell me that I should, rest, take a day off, and I have a really hard time doing that. I have a really hard time. Well, the same problem as you, Spencer. I have the same problem where I can't not wake up in the morning and go work out. And I don't know how to do a light day.
Right. Yeah. Oh, well, I don't know. For some, that's not a problem, man. It's a blessing, but it gets a little challenging sometimes. Try to go on vacation and do nothing. That's even more scary, right?
It is. Yeah. My wife wants me to leave.
All right, last question, number 5. If your 25-year-old self walked into this room today, what do you think he'd thank you for? And what would he tell you you're still getting wrong?
Huh. Well, first of all, I'd slap him across the face. But what would I thank him for, or what would he thank me for?
Well, what would he thank you? What would he thank you for? And then what would he tell you you're still getting wrong?
He would thank me for continuing on with my education, even when I thought that I was going to be a professional athlete for the rest of my life, he would say, "Man, it's a great thing you listened to your mom and stayed in school."
There you go.
And I think I don't know. I think you'd be pretty happy that I made some of the decisions I did. Like my wife, I think I'm really happy with, and my whole life in general. I do have to say I'm really darn happy about, and I think my 25-year-old self would go, "Way to go, man!" So
That's great.
All
That's
right,
good
I got one more before we finish up, Doc. You spent about 10 years writing a book that you just released, and the link will be in our description. In that 10 years of writing this book, what in a quick elevator speech, what's the one thing you learned from writing this book that other people need to know?
That is without a doubt, it is how to get in touch with your body and how to listen to your body better and trust those signals that your body is sending you. So it is all about that exactly, right? How do I use something like a wearable to build trust in my body rather than use a wearable and get freaked out and build anxiety and lose trust in myself.
You know what, Doc? I just want to say thank you for your time. And if this resonates with anybody that's bought a wearable and just stares at it and doesn't know how to use it, or is obsessed with it and doesn't know how to listen to their body, and they need a manual of interpretation on either side, yeah, it's nice that they have something they can go, whether they want to purchase it or talk to you. It's something that I think people need to learn more. And you're seeing everybody walk around with them. I just don't think everybody knows how to use them. So thank you for the time you spent with us today.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having me back. It was great to see you both.
Absolutely, buddy. Thank you.